YouTube! Hi everybody! Welcome back to my channel. 2020 has already come to an end, so I thought that I would share my top 10 favorite books that I read in the year 2020. I'm very excited to share my favorites with you because I love talking about the books I like way more than I like talking about the books that I don't like. So let's just get started. I would also like to mention that the books are going to be discussed simply in the order that I read them in. I can't really rank them. They're all too good. I define all of my favorite reads of 2020 as 4 stars or higher. If there are any other star rating differences, I will say them. I will state them. I would also like to add that since I don't have copies of a lot of these books, I am going to be holding up this blank book as I talk, just to have something to gesture to. Okay, let's get started. So the first book on my list is The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kiersten White. This was one of the first books that I read in 2020, as I received it as a birthday present in December of 2019. So this book is a retelling of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley from the perspective of the side character Elizabeth Frankenstein. Now, in the original novel, she took on a side role, basically just like a object of Victor's affection, but in this book she has a character and agency and actual ambitions that connect to the plot of the original novel that was not explored. This book explores her twisted relationship with Victor, the consequences of her actions in trying to keep that relationship, as well as dangerous encounters with a monster. There are a few plot points that differ from the original novel that I don't necessarily agree with, but everything was written well enough. I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the action, I enjoyed the plot and the sort of mystery. I enjoyed the new characters introduced, and I enjoyed how it tied into the original novel. This book is an excellent companion for the original novel. It is very believable and original while also keeping the heart of Frankenstein. So I highly recommend it. The next book that I read in 2020 that I consider a favorite is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Now, this book was pretty popular on BookTube, more so in 2019, so I will be brief. Red, White, and Royal Blue is a light political rivals to lovers new adult romance about the son of the US president and the son of the British royal family getting into a relationship. The book was really light, really enjoyable, really cute. It was really, really solid. A lot of the plot points and tropes were a little bit expected for the genre, but I knew them going into it, so I kind of expected just a very light, very easy, very enjoyable novel. I enjoyed a lot of the character interaction as well as the really good representation. There was biracial and bisexual representation, as well as a more accurate realization of bisexuality. So it was a very enjoyable, very lovely, fluffy romance. It was very good escapism for the political climate that we were in this year, so I really, really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. My third favorite read of 2020 was actually a trilogy, and that was the Alexander the Great trilogy by Mary Renault. That includes Fire from Heaven, The Persian Boy, and Funeral Games. So Fire from Heaven got 4 stars, The Persian Boy got 4.5 stars, and Funeral Games only got 3 stars. I will say this right now, the trilogy definitely won't be for everybody. They are very dense, very complicated, fictional, historical biographies, but as somebody who studied Alexander the Great in university, I really, really found myself enjoying these biographies. Fire from Heaven is a story about Alexander the Great's childhood up until the murder of his father, Philip II of Macedon, and his ascension into essentially the throne for Macedon. I found this to be a very good start for the trilogy, and I really enjoyed how you never got Alexander's perspective straight up. You only heard about what Alexander was doing through the perspective of other people, which is a really creative way to do it since we don't really know that much truth about Alexander the Great's life, as he was written by dozens and dozens and dozens of other biographers, basically centuries after his death. So I loved the choice that the author made to recount Alexander's life in the perspective of everybody around him. The Persian Boy is about Alexander the Great's conquest of all of Asia and Greece through the perspective of his concubine Bagoas. Now, this story has a lot more adult and mature themes that may be triggering to some, but I enjoyed this book the best because I knew about Bagoas going into it. I very much enjoyed more of the romantic and political intrigue as opposed to a lot of the war and action that usually defines Alexander the Great's achievements. And finally, Funeral Games is the consequences of trying to decide who will be king of his kingdom after Alexander the Great's death. I enjoyed this book the least because it was very, very action based. It was basically like the A Song of Ice and Fire series if the women were treated a lot worse and everybody died. So I really, really enjoyed this trilogy. I enjoyed all of the different character perspectives. I really enjoyed how everything in Alexander the Great's life was approached. I enjoyed the biography aspect that was heavily fictionized to make it much more interesting, because that reflects a lot of Alexander the Great's biographies. He has a medieval romance written about him, he has philosophical fiction based on him, so fictionalizing Alexander the Great's life in this way was really interesting. I really, really enjoyed these books. They were an excellent trilogy of historical fiction, and I recommend them if you know about Alexander the Great and want to read on him further. My fourth read of 2020 that I enjoyed the most was Blood Countess by Lana Popovich. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Blood Countess is a YA historical fiction and horror mystery about a young female healer taking a position at the castle of Elizabeth Bathory. If you know anything about Elizabeth Bathory, which I won't spoil here, then you know exactly what occurs in this novel. Now, I was not expecting this novel to be as surprisingly good as it was. I had previously read Dracula the Undead by Dacre Stoker and Ian Holt, and their treatment of Elizabeth Bathory was really, really bad, so I was not expecting this novel to be good because it was YA. I thought it was going to be too light, too easy, and not that compelling, but I was pleasantly surprised by this novel. It was pretty historically accurate, very, very compelling, and I actually related to the protagonist. She wasn't a typical horror protagonist who was kind of stupid and made really, really silly decisions. A lot of her decisions made sense in the context of her ambitions and what she valued, so I really, really appreciated having a sympathetic and compelling main female character. I wanted to see her succeed. It was also a gripping mystery and had very, very good tension between the female protagonist and Elizabeth Bathory herself. The book doesn't take the usual monstrous or supernatural route with Elizabeth Bathory. It is very, very interesting, and I just really, really liked it. It didn't feel too young for the YA genre. It fit very well in the actual historical events of Elizabeth Bathory's life. I highly recommend it. It was very, very, very engaging. I really liked it. It's pretty short too, so you can get through it pretty quick. My next book, book number 5, was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This was another birthday present. Thank you, Sarah! I have recommended this book before in my Dark Academia video, which you should watch, by the way, but this is a dark academia or academic thriller set in an arts college where a theater group performs Shakespeare exclusively. It is a super gripping, super intense murder mystery. This had a super engaging friendship group with a lot of very interesting, well-explored character dynamics. The writing is very, very simple while also being very, very beautiful at the same time. And you don't need to be a Shakespeare expert to understand the themes or content of the novel, as everything is very, very well explained. So this is a very, very enjoyable novel, very dark, very atmospheric, very gripping, and kept me hooked. So I highly recommend it. My next favorite, or number 6 in my favorite books of 2020, was another dark academia that I listened to on audiobook, and that was The Lake of Dead Languages by Carol Goodman. This is another book that I recommended in my previous video, but it is also a dark academia or simply an academic thriller mystery about a teacher at a all-girls school where she teaches Latin, and there are two perspectives It is her past self as a student of the school, and then her present self as a teacher of the school. The female protagonist is set to solve a mystery that affected her past and has followed her into the present. It also involves murder. This is just a wonderful academic mystery. It is very engaging. It is very slow building with a wonderful atmosphere. I enjoyed the all-female cast and the wonderful dynamics that each of them have. The audiobook was very, very well read. The reader who did it was very, very good at changing her voice to fit certain characters and fit the mood very, very well. It is a very engaging, very spooky, very atmospheric novel, which I do highly recommend. And I really, really would like to get a copy someday. Book number 7 in my favorite books of 2020 was With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is another very popular read on BookTube, more so again last year or even the previous year, but I just got to it this year. It is a stunning contemporary YA book about a main character named Emily. Emily is a high school student who struggles to balance her child, her family, her schoolwork, her friends, her romantic life, her culture, as well as trying to succeed at being a chef at her school. This story is so lovely and so refreshing. Despite a lot of the hardships that Emily faces, she faces them head on, her struggles are realistic, and it's all very, very wholesome and very positive. A lot of contemporaries I feel are too depressing for me to read, so this one having such a positive and very ambitious tone is really, 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 really refreshing. I really liked it. It was so positive and so lovely, and it was just so adorable. I loved reading everything that happened in the book. And I know that everybody says this, but the descriptions of food that she makes in the novel were so yummy sounding. I got so hungry reading this. It just really envelops all of your senses as you read it, and I was just reading it with a smile on my face. So I highly recommend that you read it. The writing is beautiful. It's so positive and wholesome and refreshing and very, 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 very lovely. So number 8 for my favorite book of 2020 was actually a duology. The Bloodline series by Kate Carey. Bloodline and Bloodline Reckoning. Now, these books were really, really fun YA sequels to the original novel Dracula by Bram Stoker, featuring the next generation of Dracula characters, which included Quincy Harker, who was born at the end of the original novel. These were another set of books that greatly surprised me in the YA genre. I really enjoyed the first book specifically, as it was at the beginning set in World War I in the trenches, and I found that to be a very refreshing and unique setting for a vampire novel. These books were an actually pretty successful use of the epistolary format that is written in the style of letter writing. There were no aspects of the letter writing or diary writing that seemed a bit too expository for the plot or inconvenient into the events of the plot. Like, nobody started writing in the middle of an action scene, nobody started writing after an intense murder or anything. It was all very realistic diary entries and letters. The duology features characters both old and new in the original novel for Dracula, which leads to a lot of very exciting twists and reveals. There are a few plot points in both novels that are pretty laughable, but they are more of a fun romp than a serious literary book. These were really, really light, really, really fun, very exciting books, and I do highly recommend them if you are as much of a vampire and Dracula fan as I am. Now, I have one more book that I believe may be a favorite of the year, but I still have yet to read it because I am filming this in the middle of December. So if that book makes it into this video, I will be editing it here. Roll the clip! My other favorite book of 2020 is Little Women. Read Little Women, it's really, really good. I really liked it. It's really sad. Please read it. It's very, very good. I like it. I liked it a lot. And there you have it. Those are all of my favorite books that I read in 2020. I'm stating again that they are all 4 stars or higher, except for Funeral Games, which was only 3 stars, but it was part of a stunning trilogy, so these are all books that either surprised me or just filled me with a great sense of joy that I really enjoyed reading and that I recommend to you if you are interested. So that's it. 2020 is wrapped up. I am super excited to start 2021 nice and fresh and ready to discuss even more books that I plan to read in the new year. I have so many books to read, you have no idea. I'm so excited. I have so many books bookmarked on my Hoopla app. I have so many books that I wish for Christmas, so I cannot wait to get started on those. I hope you enjoyed listening to me gush and struggling to read the script that I wrote 2 weeks ago. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you did so, feel free to subscribe, to like, and to comment your favorite books of 2020. I would love to hear your favorites and discuss them, even if I haven't read them. Thank you so much for watching. Happy holidays, happy new year, bye! But everything was blah blah. Red, white, and royal blue is a shit. Under the I really enjoyed the first book especially. Oh, I pointed to the wrong book.